I don't know exactly where I got my fearlessness from. I have to tell everything. But my life is very complicated, much more complicated than you guys could ever imagine, and much more complicated than...
Cher, the immortal goddess of pop, a voice that shook the world. The only woman to etch her name across 7 decades of Billboard history and to claim the full set of an Oscar, Grammy, Emmy, and Golden Globe. A legend who turned every comeback into a cultural revolution. A star who never allowed age or prejudice to place a period at the end of her story. But behind the dazzling spotlight lies a tale far from glamorous. A childhood so poor she had to tie rubber bands around torn shoes. Nights spent in orphanages. A father who walked away. A girlhood scarred by the shame of being different. And wounds of the spirit that never truly healed. From a little girl who seemed destined to sink into the shadows, Cher rose to become a global cultural icon. Every time her private life collapsed, she was reborn in art, stronger, bolder, as if tragedy itself was the fuel for her radiance. This is not merely the story of a diva. It is an epic of a woman who turned tears into strength, ruins into triumph, and left behind a legacy that time cannot erase. And before we step into this journey, if you believe Cher deserves the title Immortal Queen of Pop, leave a comment as a tribute to the woman who rose from the darkness time and again to shine. What Cher endured in love, in her career, and in the tragedies that followed had already been seeded in a childhood marked by deprivation and deep insecurity. Cher, born Sherilyn Sarkisian on May 20th, 1946 in El Centro, California, had her life shaped by family instability from the very beginning. Her father, John Sarkisian, an Armenian-American truck driver, was plagued by dark habits, alcoholism, and gambling. He was absent for most of Cher's early years, and her parents divorced when she was only 10 months old. She did not officially see her father again until the age of 11. "He was so charming you couldn't believe it," Cher recalled in an interview with Simon Hattenstone, "but he had a rap sheet. He had a criminal past." Her mother, Georgia Holt, was the opposite, a multi-talented artist who sang, wrote songs, acted, and even worked as a model. Despite her talents and burning passion, Georgia struggled to raise her family in poverty. She married 6 times to 5 different men. Her marriage to actor John Southall produced Jorgan, Cher's half-sister. Cher once regarded Southall as a father figure, but later admitted he was a violent drunk, according to Connie Berman's biography of Cher. Holt divorced Southall when Cher was 9 and continued raising both daughters as a single mother. She occasionally hit Cher, something Cher later regarded with calm acceptance. "My mom was from the South, and that was just the way it was," she told Hattenstone. To Cher, Georgia remained her greatest source of strength. "My mom was my biggest fan," Cher told The Guardian. Georgia had performed on Oklahoma City radio at age 6, sung with Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys by 10, and during the 1950s appeared in small TV roles, including I Love Lucy and The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet. But her artistic career never brought the success she longed for, forcing her to work various jobs to support her family. At one desperate point, Georgia had to place Cher in an orphanage for several weeks because she could not afford to support her. Although they still saw each other daily, the wound of that separation scarred Cher for life. Cher's hardships were compounded by dyslexia, which made learning a constant struggle. She often felt out of place and inferior to her classmates. Instead of reproach, Georgia gave her confidence with a simple reassurance. "That's all right. School isn't important. When you grow up, you'll have somebody else do the numbers for you." That unwavering belief helped Cher defy the limits society placed on her. Yet Georgia never abandoned her own faith in art. In 1980, she recorded the album Honky Tonk Woman with Elvis Presley's band, though it was not released until 2013. That same year, the documentary Dear Mom, Love Cher was released. a heartfelt tribute from Cher that honored the struggles and resilience of the mother who had given her wings. Cher's childhood was harsh. At times, she tied rubber bands around her ruined shoes, and even having enough food each day was a challenge. The home was so fragile and lacking that it seemed ready to collapse at any moment. But in that precariousness, Cher's creative fire never dimmed. On the contrary, her imagination and resilience only grew brighter, turning hardship into fuel for survival. From elementary school, Cher displayed an instinct for performance. She choreographed, staged plays, and directed her classmates. In 5th grade, she staged the musical Oklahoma, and when she could not persuade boys to participate, boldly took the male roles herself, singing their parts. These were the first sparks, when the dark-haired, brown-eyed girl discovered her confidence on the small stage, a refuge from her harsh reality. The drive to escape poverty burned in her early. At 9, her voice dropped unusually low, a difference that made her feel even more isolated. With her unconventional looks, Cher often felt alienated both in society and within her family, where her blonde, blue-eyed mother and sister fit the prevailing beauty standards. The insecurity was constant, but instead of retreating, Cher dreamed of another world. Her life shifted when Georgia married Gilbert LaPierre, a bank executive. The marriage brought some stability, and Cher was enrolled in an elite private school in Encino, California. There, she realized she was entirely different from the wealthy, upper-class students. Though not academically gifted, she stood out for her creativity and unique intelligence. Her adventurous spirit and distinctive fashion sense made her the center of attention, with peers recognizing star quality in her from an early age. She became captivated by cinema, especially Audrey Hepburn in Breakfast at Tiffany's, 1961. Hepburn became her idol, embodying elegance beyond convention. Cher began dressing in unusual outfits, imitating Hepburn's poise and nurturing her dream of escaping poverty. Although she admitted she never felt beautiful or talented enough, she remained resolute. "I couldn't think of anything I could do. I didn't want to be a singer or dancer. I just thought, yeah, I'll be famous. That was my goal." A childhood of hardship, the rubber-banded shoes, the orphanage, her mother's failed marriages, the absence of her father, the feeling of abandonment amid rigid beauty ideals, all forged a Cher who was at once vulnerable and defiant. Those brutal experiences steeled her willpower and paved the way for her transformation from a poor little girl into Hollywood's indomitable goddess of pop. Cher's impoverished childhood never dimmed her dream of escaping reality. But to turn that dream into truth, she had to walk a path that was anything but easy. At 16, Cher dropped out of high school. With dyslexia, she always felt out of place in the classroom, and the academic world had never offered her recognition. It was then she decided, instead of conforming, she would write her own path. She left El Centro for Los Angeles, the city of dreamers, a paradise and a trap all at once. By day, she worked odd jobs to survive. By night, she squeezed into smoky coffee houses where voices fought to rise above the haze. Cher did not have classic Hollywood looks. Black hair, olive-toned skin, a husky, low voice. Far from the blonde-haired, blue-eyed image audiences adored. Yet it was precisely this difference that made her stand out in the crowd. In 1963, fate intervened when Cher met Sonny Bono at a coffee house near a Los Angeles radio station. At the time, Sonny was both assistant and protege to legendary producer Phil Spector, already known for hits like Needles and Pins. Through Sonny, Cher began working on Spector's recording sessions. At first, she was only a background singer, but her distinctive husky contralto soon imprinted itself on hits like The Ronettes' Be My Baby and the Righteous Brothers' You've Lost That Lovin' Feelin'. Cher also ventured into solo work early on. Ringo, I Love You, produced by Spector and released under the name Bonnie Joe Mason. Though the single failed, It marked Cher's first step inside a professional studio, an unglamorous but vital beginning. From professional partnership, Cher and Sonny quickly grew close. Though Sonny was married at the time, their bond deepened. He eventually ended his marriage and officially embarked on a journey with Cher, both as musical partners and as lovers. The duo first tried performing as Caesar and Cleo, releasing early singles like The Letter, Do You Wanna Dance, and Love Is Strange, all flops. They were ignored by the public and dismissed as outsiders in the pop scene. Yet their devotion and belief in each other kept them going. Their real breakthrough came in 1965, when they rebranded as Sonny and Cher. I Got You Babe struck like lightning. The song resonated with an entire generation of American youth and catapulted them to international fame. At the same time, Cher signed a solo deal with Liberty/Imperial Records. Her debut album, All I Really Want to Do, 1965, entered the Billboard 200 Top 20, and her cover of the Bob Dylan song reached number 15, surpassing the version by the Byrds. Within a year, Cher, the girl who once tied rubber bands around her shoes in El Centro, had become an icon. Her solo hits like Bang Bang, My Baby Shot Me Down, number 2, 1966, proved she was not merely riding on Sonny's coattails. Still, the greatest mark came from their duets, Beyond I Got You. Babe number 1, 1965, they churned out hits like Baby Don't Go, Just You But You're Mine, What Now? My Love Little Man, and The Beat Goes On. They became the hottest couple in music, so much so that in some conservative communities, their playful banter and flamboyant fashion on stage were seen as offensive. But that very difference was what made Sonny and Cher a cultural phenomenon of the 1960s. Behind the spotlight, Cher's early career was far from easy. She battled prejudice against her unconventional voice, record labels hesitant to embrace a female singer who sounded unlike anyone else, and the financial strain both she and Sonny endured. Yet her stubborn resilience and sharp instinct for opportunity, such as releasing All I Really Want to Do ahead of the Byrds, transformed Cher from an unknown girl into an irreplaceable force in American pop music. After the explosion of I Got You Babe, Cher did not stop at being one half of Sonny and Cher. She gradually proved herself as an independent force in music, a female voice impossible to confuse among the sea of blonde pop stars of that era. The late 1960s and early 1970s saw Cher's relentless expansion. While continuing to release hits with Sonny such as The Beat Goes On and Little Man, it was Cher's solo path that truly established her as a star who needed no supporting light. With Gypsies, Tramps, and Thieves, 1971, Cher scored her first number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100. Soon after, Half Breed, 1973, and Dark Lady, 1974, also climbed straight to the top, giving her 3 consecutive number 1 singles in just 3 years, a feat that forced critics to acknowledge Cher as a bona fide pop diva. Beyond the recording studio, Cher conquered American television. The Sonny and Cher Comedy Hour, launched in 1971, made them household names for millions of families. With sharp-witted banter, Cher increasingly became the focal point. Her tall, slender figure, her quick intelligence, and her dazzling costumes designed by Bob Mackie. She stepped out from the image of the duet girl and transformed into a fashion icon and a pop culture symbol. At the height of her singing career, Cher began to dream of another horizon, acting. And in just a few short years, she stunned Hollywood. In Silkwood, 1983, she portrayed Dolly Pellicker, the lesbian friend of Meryl Streep's lead character. The gritty, authentic performance of an ordinary woman living truthfully earned Cher an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress. Few knew Cher had feared being dismissed by veteran actors, but Streep reassured her instantly, "You have everything it takes to succeed here." That encouragement gave Cher the confidence to step fully into serious acting. 2 years later, in Mask, 1985, she again impressed critics as Rusty Dennis, the fierce yet vulnerable mother of a boy with craniofacial deformities. The role won her Best Actress at the Cannes Film Festival. Behind the scenes, director Peter Bogdanovich initially doubted Cher's ability to capture such psychological complexity, but her instinctive, raw performance forced him to change his mind. Cher herself said, "Rusty was me, a mother fighting the whole world to protect her child." It all reached its pinnacle in 1987 with Moonstruck. As Loretta Castorini, a widowed Italian woman still yearning for love, Cher exploded on screen and won the Oscar for Best Actress. Studio executives had doubted that a pop singer could carry the lead in a romantic film, but director Norman Jewison fought for her, a choice that forever changed her career. When Cher's name was called on Oscar night, she stepped onto the stage in a spectacular Bob Mackie gown, turning that triumph into an unforgettable Hollywood image. As The Atlantic noted, these roles not only brought Cher awards but also proved her capacity for endless reinvention. From pop singer to Oscar-winning actress, a rare testament to the power of transcending artistic boundaries, music remained inseparable from her. In 1989, Cher released Heart of Stone, with If I Could Turn Back Time becoming a global hit. But what made the song go down in history was not only the melody penned by Diane Warren, but also its wildly controversial music video. Filmed aboard the USS Missouri surrounded by 200 sailors, Cher appeared in a sheer black bodysuit designed by Bob Mackie, paired with a leather jacket, garter belt, and boots. The outfit was so daring it revealed a tattoo on her buttocks, shocking not only the public but also the U.S. Navy. The Navy, eager to protect its image, balked at the shoot. Officers protested, and some even wrote to President George H.W. Bush to express outrage. A former commander declared he would be ashamed to be assigned to that ship. Even MTV, known for its rebellious streak, backed down. After 8 weeks of regular rotation, they restricted the video to post-9 p.m. airings, making it one of the first music videos effectively put under curfew. In some towns, city councils even demanded MTV be pulled from cable packages due to the backlash. Yet the controversy only fueled the song's success. If I Could Turn Back Time climbed the charts, while Cher's image in the outfit, Too Hot for MTV, became a pop culture icon of the late 80s. The costume was later auctioned at Julien's in 2021 for $115,200, and Cher herself wore it again at the MTV Video Music Awards in 2010, a deliberate wink at history. That was only her second peak. The greatest came in 1998 with the release of Believe. At that time, pop was dominated by boy bands and young divas like Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera. Few thought a star approaching 50 could ignite a global sensation. But Believe did exactly that, not only topping the charts in over 20 countries, but also ushering in the era of auto-tune. The shock was not just that the song hit #1 on Billboard, but the unprecedented robotic vocal effect created by engineer Mark Taylor, who pushed auto-tune to its extreme. At first, both Cher and her label Geffen were nervous. Some producers worried it would sound fake and be rejected by radio. MTV dubbed it the Cher effect, half praise, half mockery. Traditionalists attacked her for killing real music, turning the human voice into a machine. But for young listeners, the sound was mesmerizing, addictive, and made Believe explode across dance floors worldwide. Cher, who only hoped the album would keep her career afloat, suddenly became the dance queen of a new generation. Behind the scenes, Cher initially disliked the song. Diane Warren once said, Cher hated the song when she heard the demo. But she changed her mind after hearing the final mix and decided to take the risk. That gamble not only saved her career, but also permanently transformed how pop music was produced. When auto-tune spread throughout the industry, from T-Pain to Kanye West, people always traced it back to Cher and Believe. Thanks to that bold leap, she became the only artist to have a #1 Billboard Hot 100 hit in 7 consecutive decades, through the 2020s. Following Believe, Cher cemented her status with The Living Proof, the farewell tour in 2002. Initially announced as her final tour, it turned into one of the most successful tours of the 2000s. Running for more than 3 years, with over 325 shows worldwide, it grossed over $250 million, one of the highest-grossing tours of all time. Each night, Cher delivered a spectacle of costume changes, energetic choreography, and timeless hits spanning her career. The tour was not just a goodbye to audiences, but a declaration that Cher, despite decades of ups and downs, remained one of the greatest and most enduring entertainers in the business. As The Atlantic observed, Cher's career peak cannot be measured solely in sales or awards, Oscars, Grammys, Emmys, Golden Globes, hundreds of millions of records, but in her ability to reinvent herself with every decade. From folk pop, television music, and art house film to electronic dance pop, whenever she seemed on the verge of fading, Cher reappeared, fresh, youthful, and breaking through age and social barriers. But the spotlight only told half the story. The other half lay in her stormy personal life, where Cher faced broken marriages, high-profile romances, and silent sorrows. The first great turbulence in Cher's personal life was her relationship with Sonny Bono. At just 16, struggling to find her footing in Los Angeles, she met Sonny, a man nearly 12 years her senior, then working for producer Phil Spector. At the time, Sonny was already married with a daughter, though his first marriage was faltering. Initially, he had his eye on Cher's friend, but between him and Cher grew an inexplicable connection. Cher would later recall that in the very first moment she saw Sonny, everything else around me just disappeared. At first, they lived together platonically. Cher moved in simply because she had nowhere else to go. But the relationship soon evolved from innocent companionship into romance. For Cher, a girl scarred by her father's abandonment, Sonny was both an anchor and, in some ways, a paternal figure. That dynamic created a bond that was both comforting and inescapable. Under Sonny's guidance, Cher entered the entertainment industry. From there, she grew quickly, emerging as a star in her own right. In 1964, at just 18, they held an informal wedding in Tijuana, Mexico, later making it official in 1969. Only a year after that, I Got You Babe turned them into the most celebrated musical couple of the 1960s, a symbol of love and harmony on stage. Yet the same closeness of their professional and private lives became a source of bitterness. Cher admired and trusted Sonny, but he controlled everything, from finances to her career, leaving her trapped in his shadow. Cher's mother once remarked that Sonny reminded her of Cher's father, Johnny Sarkeesian, as though history were repeating itself. Indeed, for Cher, the relationship was never pure romance, but rather a paradoxical bond, one of protection on the surface, suffocating control underneath. By the 1970s, the Sonny and Cher comedy hour had made them America's favorite television couple. On screen, they were the picture of happiness, closing each episode with their duet of I Got You Babe. Off-screen, their marriage was unraveling. Sonny was unfaithful, and Cher bitterly admitted one woman or even 5 would never be enough for him. At one point, Sonny openly flaunted a new partner, but because the brand Sonny and Cher was too valuable, they maintained the facade of marriage to protect their careers. In his 1973 diary, Sonny even confessed to living as husband and wife with another woman, while Cher was forced to remain the public wife. By then, marriage had become not only betrayal, but also a prison. In Cher, the memoir, she revealed that she often felt trapped in a marriage without love. At its darkest, in 1972, while in Las Vegas, she would step out onto her hotel balcony, staring down and contemplating a jump. I was dizzy with loneliness. It felt so easy to step over the edge and disappear, Cher admitted. Only the thought of her young child, Chaz, her mother and her sister pulled her back. And then she realized, I don't have to jump. I can just leave him. Eventually, the facade collapsed. In February 1974, Sonny filed for legal separation, and Cher countered immediately with divorce, accusing him of involuntary servitude. The proceedings exposed the truth. Cher Enterprises, the company she believed was shared, was actually 95% owned by Sonny, with the remaining 5% belonging to their lawyer. Cher herself had nothing, bound by a restrictive contract that prevented her from working without Sonny's approval. By trusting her husband, she had shackled herself. To break free, Cher was forced to agree to perform with Sonny in shows worth over $1 million just to dissolve the contract. On June 26, 1975, the divorce was finalized. Just days later, Cher married Gregg Allman of the Allman Brothers Band, another marriage that quickly descended into turmoil. Their solo television ventures both failed, pushing them to attempt a reunion in the Sonny and Cher show. But the old magic was gone, and the program fizzled out. Though Sonny later admitted, it took me years to finally let go. And Cher confessed, if he had been fair and split things evenly, I wouldn't have left. The wounds between them never healed. After the divorce, they often took jabs at each other in the press. When asked about her happiest moment, Cher bluntly replied, it was when I left Sonny. And yet amid all the wreckage, a thread of emotion remained. In 1987, they reunited on Late Night with David Letterman to sing I Got You Babe one last time. That performance became etched in fans' memories as a bittersweet note of nostalgia. When Sonny died in a skiing accident in 1998, Cher was devastated. She spent days drafting his eulogy, hoping to mend all the hurts and misunderstandings. Standing before his coffin, she choked up, the most unforgettable person I've ever met, and no matter how old I get, that person will always be Sonny. Years later, Cher admitted Sonny's death left a shock, a void nothing could fill. She even sought comfort from psychics, wanting to believe he was still watching over her, just as he had in the early 1960s. A circle had closed. Love, control, betrayal, regret, all woven into a romance both radiant and shadowed, leaving an indelible mark on Cher's heart. Just days after her turbulent divorce from Sonny was finalized, Cher shocked the public by marrying Gregg Allman, the soul of the legendary rock band, the Allman Brothers. On June 30th, 1975, they stood before the altar in Las Vegas, marking a dramatic new turn in Cher's personal life. Many believed she was simply trying to mend her broken heart after Sonny, but in truth, this decision opened a chapter of even greater instability. By then, Gregg Allman was already a celebrated musician, hailed as the voice of the American South, a man who helped shape the Southern rock movement with classics like Midnight Rider and Whipping Post. But behind the spotlight, Gregg was drowning in drugs, particularly heroin, and plagued by relentless bouts of alcoholism. Cher later admitted in her memoir that she fully knew Gregg carried dark demons when she agreed to marry him, yet she was captivated by the fragile charm she saw in him. I loved the vulnerability in his eyes. The marriage began under a cloud of doubt. Cher wrote, I didn't know if my relationship with Gregory would last. I just lived day to day as it was. Then I found out I was pregnant, and we decided to marry. It was a rushed choice, devoid of preparation. There was nothing romantic about our wedding day, she confessed. Only 9 days after the ceremony, Cher was so shaken by Gregg's heroin use that she filed for annulment. But just as she had once tolerated Sonny's control, Cher relented. They reconciled, clinging to the naive belief that love could conquer addiction. In 1976, they welcomed their son, Elijah Blue Allman. Elijah would later follow in their footsteps, founding the rock band Dead Z. But his childhood was overshadowed by family turbulence. His birth seemed, for a moment, to offer a chance at saving the marriage. In reality, it only underscored their differences. On one side, a global diva omnipresent on television. On the other, a musical genius disappearing into drug binges. Gregg admitted he felt jealous and insecure under Cher's spotlight, while she endured the constant fear of her husband vanishing for days at a time. In 1977, the couple attempted to merge love and career with the project To the Hard Way, under the name Allman and Woman. But the album quickly collapsed, both commercially and critically, dismissed as a pairing that should never have existed. The fiasco mirrored their marriage itself. Passionate, yet irreconcilable. By 1979, after 4 stormy years, Cher formally ended the marriage. She once said bitterly, "I went from a man who controlled everything I did to a man I couldn't control at all." Still, affection never completely died. When Gregg passed away from complications of liver cancer in 2017, Cher mourned publicly, writing, "I have lost someone special tonight." If her marriage to Sonny was a binding of love and power, then with Gregg Allman, it was a dangerous dance between love and destruction. Both relationships left deep scars on Cher's life, but together, they also forged the strength of a woman who dared to rise after heartbreak and keep moving forward. In the mid-1980s, at the height of her career and after a failed marriage, Cher surprised the public with a brief but intriguing romance with Tom Cruise, the rising star who was just 23 at the time, 16 years her junior. Their first encounter came in August 1985 at Madonna and Sean Penn's wedding. Cher was 38, Cruise fresh off the success of Risky Business. "In that moment, everything else around me just disappeared," Cher recalled. Though it would be some time before they officially began dating, from the start she felt a strange connection. What bound them wasn't fame, but a shared vulnerability. Both suffered from dyslexia. They were invited to the White House for an event dedicated to people with learning disabilities, and that experience drew them closer. From private conversations, the two began dating, with Cher later describing, "Those were long dates. I basically lived in his apartment." The relationship was not just a fleeting fling. In a candid game on The Late Late Show with James Corden, Cher listed Tom Cruise among the top 5 lovers she'd ever had. Speaking to Oprah Winfrey, she even admitted that, if not for their grueling work schedules, Cruise could have been a great love. Looking back, Cher confessed, "He really made me crazy. When we were together, we were hot and heavy. Still, not everything was perfect." Cruise remained intensely private, and as his image shifted over time, especially with the controversies surrounding Scientology, Cher admitted she couldn't understand it and chose not to speak about it. "I still love him. He's amazing," she said, "but I can hardly recognize the man I once dated." Throughout her life, Cher had many romances with famous men: Sonny Bono, Val Kilmer, Gene Simmons, Richie Sambora. Yet, with Tom Cruise, she maintained a particular respect. "We're still friends," she affirmed, "even if we don't always understand each other." Perhaps because of its brevity, its passion, and its aura of mystery, Cher's romance with Tom Cruise remains one of the most talked-about chapters in her love life. Though their relationship was short-lived, it left a strong imprint, one Cher has often revisited with a mix of regret and fondness. But Tom was not the only man in her orbit during that period. Before him, Cher had been deeply involved with Val Kilmer, the young star who, like Cruise, appeared in Top Gun. "When we kissed, I thought my head would shoot right off my body," Cher admitted with disarming candor. After Val and Tom, Cher sought new experiences, sometimes beyond Hollywood's bright lights. One of the most meaningful was with Rob Camilletti, the baker 18 years her junior. Their 3-year romance was once described by Cher as true love, a simple yet profound relationship that allowed her to feel like herself again after years entangled with fame and A-list partners. From Val Kilmer, Tom Cruise, to Rob Camilletti, Gene Simmons, and Richie Sambora, each love story gave Cher a different shade of what love could mean. Some were fiery, some tender, and others exacted the price of tears. But together, they painted a vivid, colorful portrait of the love life of one of the greatest pop icons of the 20th century. In the late 1980s, Cher entered yet another romance, sweet yet controversial, with Rob Camilletti, a man 18 years her junior. Cher met Rob in 1986, when she had just turned 40 and he was 22. At the time, Rob was only a bagel maker in New York, which led the press to mockingly nickname him Bagel Boy. But behind that name was a relationship Cher would later describe, more than once, as perhaps the true love of my life. For 3 years, Rob was not just a lover, but also became a part of Cher's career. He appeared in several of her hit music videos, including I Found Someone, We All Sleep Alone, and Main Man. They even walked hand in hand on the red carpet at the 1988 Oscars, the night Cher won Best Actress for Moonstruck. Yet behind the glamour, relentless media scrutiny began to suffocate their love. The pressure came not only from the tabloids, but from real-life incidents. In 1988, Rob found himself in legal trouble after crashing his car into that of a paparazzo camped outside Cher's home. Both the car and the camera were damaged, and Rob was charged with assault with a deadly weapon. Though Cher publicly defended him, the ordeal only gave the press more fuel. In 2010, she would bitterly reflect, "We were torn apart by the media. They were so mean to Robert." Though the two split in 1989, they never severed ties completely. Rob retreated to a private life, becoming a pilot flying celebrities around, but he continued to stay connected to Cher. She once shared, "Ex-boyfriends make good friends." Robert still comes to my Christmas parties. He once flew me to Jamaica. What made it remarkable was that even decades later, Cher's affection for him never faded. In a 2020 interview with The Guardian, she admitted, "I think it's Robert and Gregg Allman." For her, Rob was a rock, steady, peaceful, unlike any other man who had come and gone in her life. Beyond Rob, Cher's love life remained intertwined with a gallery of famous names that left Hollywood buzzing. In the late 1970s, when Cher was already a diva and Simmons was at his peak behind his demon makeup, the two unlikely figures were drawn together in a whirlwind romance. Cher once called him the man I was crazy about. The story took an even more dramatic turn when Simmons later dated Diana Ross, Cher's best friend. It became a rare love triangle in rock history, filled with jealousy, but also revealed Cher's openness, her willingness to love and let go. In the mid-1980s, Cher again set off headlines when she appeared with Richie Sambora, who would later marry Heather Locklear. At the time, however, he was the man who made Cher's heart race. She once praised him as one of the most underrated singers ever, showing that their bond was not just romantic, but also musical. They lived the rock and roll high life together, though the flame burned out quickly. Unlike the others, her connection with Geffen sparked debate. Some sources claimed it was a secret romance, but Cher denied it, insisting they were simply close friends. Still, her name linked to one of Hollywood's most powerful figures fueled speculation. Was there more hidden behind their silence? In her own recollections, Cher frankly mentioned Clapton as one of the men who passed briefly through her life. It wasn't a deep relationship, but just the mention of Clapton's name was enough to remind audiences of Cher's magnetic allure. Taken together, Cher's love life was not only dazzling because of her star-studded partners, but also because of the way she spoke about them, frankly, boldly, sometimes shockingly. For Cher, love was never something to be hidden. It was part of her identity, a way of asserting her freedom in a life filled with storms. After stormy romances and broken marriages, Cher's greatest challenge did not come from love, but from within her own family. In her tumultuous life, she faced the shock of her daughter Chastity Bono's decision to transition from female to male, becoming Chaz Bono. From an early age, Chastity always felt something was wrong. Growing up under the public eye, the child of two famous parents, Cher and Sonny, meant living under immense pressure. In 1995, Chastity came out as gay, a courageous step at a time when acceptance was far less common. Yet that was only the beginning of a much longer journey toward self-discovery. In 2009, Chastity took a decisive step, transitioning to male and adopting the name Chaz Bono. For a mother like Cher, it was a profound shock. She struggled to accept the change, feeling as though she was losing her daughter, an irreplaceable part of her life. In interviews, Cher admitted that when Chaz decided to transition, she cried endlessly, overwhelmed by the sense of loss. The pain came not only from having to accept her child's transformation, but also from the fear of the prejudice, difficulties, and battles Chaz would face in his new life. Yet over time, maternal love triumphed. Cher gradually came to understand that what mattered most was Chaz's happiness, that her son was seeking the truth of who he really was, and that was something worthy of respect. She learned to accept and to love Chaz fully for who he is. This change in Cher's perspective was not just a private journey, but also a powerful message to the world about acceptance and unconditional love. One of the most touching stories came from Chaz himself. Cher once asked him to keep a recording of his voice before transitioning so she could listen to the sound of her daughter whenever she missed it. It was a small gesture, yet deeply meaningful, a sign of the longing and love that bound mother and child, even as their relationship transformed. Cher went beyond acceptance, becoming an outspoken advocate for Chaz and the LGBTQ+ community. She publicly supported transgender rights, joined awareness campaigns, and used her platform to defend her son and others like him. The bond between Cher and Chaz has since become a symbol of acceptance, family love, and resilience in the quest for personal identity. In Hollywood, a world where youth and beauty are currency, Cher has long been known not only for her music and acting, but also for her seemingly ageless appearance. What most celebrities only whisper about, Cher has spoken of with striking honesty: plastic surgery. From the early years of her career, she faced relentless pressure about her looks. Her Armenian heritage, her dark hair and olive-toned skin set her apart from Hollywood's blonde ideal, leaving her feeling less than beautiful by the prevailing standards. Instead of letting those pressures defeat her, Cher chose to transform herself into an indelible icon, and cosmetic surgery became part of that journey. She has never shied away from admitting to procedures. Cher has openly acknowledged undergoing breast augmentation, rhinoplasty, and facelifts, treatments other stars often deny. "I've had my breasts done, my nose done, and my face lifted. That's the truth, and I'm not ashamed of it. Everybody wants to look good, and I'm no exception," she once declared. Rumors have swirled for decades about other procedures. One of the most sensational was the claim that she had ribs removed to achieve a smaller waistline, something she has never confirmed, but which only fueled the mystique surrounding her body. Alongside surgery, Cher has embraced modern treatments such as Botox, fillers, and even vampire facials, a process in which a patient's own blood is processed and re-injected to stimulate skin renewal. Cher hasn't just preserved a youthful look, she has shocked and dazzled with it. Across her career, she has reinvented herself through daring cutout gowns, hair in every imaginable color, and a body that seems immune to time. Even in her 70s and 80s, she has appeared on stage with a figure and radiance that younger women could envy. Yet behind the flawless exterior lies a candid philosophy. Cher never pretends her look is natural. On the contrary, she embraces her choices. "I never thought I had to look natural. I don't look natural. I'm a creation of my own, and I'm proud of it." Her fearless transparency has made Cher a symbol of confidence and individuality. She has not only challenged the conventions of beauty, but also redefined aging in entertainment. Cher has shown that age is just a number, and preserving beauty, whether through surgery or not, is nothing to be ashamed of. She has inspired countless women to live authentically, to pursue self-expression without apology, even if it means reshaping oneself. What do you think about plastic surgery as a way to preserve youth and beauty? Is it a choice worthy of respect or an excessive intervention against nature? At an age when many have chosen to retire and reflect, Cher continues to move forward with a career that shows no signs of slowing, proof of her resilience and unquenchable ambition. Not only does she maintain her status as a superstar, but she remains beautiful, stylish, and magnetic, reminding the world that age is nothing more than a number. Her youthfulness and ageless allure still captivate audiences, especially at major events and media appearances. In recent years, Cher has launched projects that reignited public attention. Her album, Dancing Queen, 2018, a collection of ABBA covers, was warmly received by fans, while her two-volume memoir, Cher, the Memoir, the first installment published in 2024, promises to reveal untold stories, from dazzling triumphs to personal shadows. At the same time, a biopic about Cher is also in production, proof that she continues to connect her journey with new generations of audiences. Cher's power lies not just in creating art, but in her ability to reinvent herself decade after decade. From the 1960s through the 2020s, she has evolved in music, fashion, and public image, becoming a living cultural phenomenon. Lady Gaga has openly credited Cher's boldness as a direct inspiration for her own artistry. Miley Cyrus has hailed her as the trailblazer for women in pop. And the LGBTQ+ community embraces her as a liberation icon thanks to her outspoken advocacy and unconditional love for her transgender son, Bono. Now in 2025, at the age of 79, Cher shows no sign of retreat. She is active on X, Twitter, known for her unfiltered statements and strong stances on social and political issues. On the personal front, she stunned the public by openly dating Alexander A.E. Edwards, a music producer 40 years her junior. Controversial as it may be, Cher stands firm. "I'm happy, and that's what matters." She continues preparing for major shows and appearing on television programs, proving that her light has never dimmed. Cher's legacy is not only defined by timeless hits like Believe and If I Could Turn Back Time, but also by her message: dare to be different, dare to rise after heartbreak, and dare to live truthfully. She embodies the truth that an artist can be at once a fashion icon, a chart-topping singer, an Oscar-winning actress, and above all, a resilient woman who transformed pain into power. Cher is not just a radiant past, she is a lasting beacon for generations of artists to come. And in the hearts of the public, she will forever remain the immortal queen of pop. Cher has lived through it all: love, loss, dazzling fame, and the darkest shadows. Yet she has never stopped rising to shine again. At an age when many would have stepped back, she continues to prove that resilience and reinvention are her greatest legacy. For you, what about Cher moves and inspires you the most? Her glorious career, her stormy romances, or the way she constantly rejuvenates herself through bold love affairs? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's spread this emotional story together. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel to keep discovering the lives of the legendary figures you admire.